busted.
Hi everyone, this is David Estes, and I'm very pleased today to come on Jenny's awesome blog at her request to read a bit of a sneak peek of my young adult dystopian novel, The Moon Dwellers, which has been receiving a bit of attention from the blogosphere and from some sites such as BuzzFeed, lumping it in with some other dystopian books that I really respect, like Divergent, and Under the Never Sky and Legend, and a lot of the great ones that are doing quite well right now. So although I'm an independent author at the moment, I certainly have dreams of getting a publisher someday, and my agent and I are working hard to do that. But what I want to do is provide a little bit of a sneak peek, and I'm very honored to be on Jenny's blog for the whole month as she's doing a bit of a spotlight on me. So she's on my street team, and she's done so much for me. So I just want to pay a little bit back by doing some readings for her from some of my books, including The Moon Dwellers. So I'll start with that right now. The Moon Dwellers is the first book in the Dwellers series, which, when combined with the Country Saga, is a 7-book dual series that comes crashing together in the final book, The Earth Dwellers, which I'll also do a bit of an excerpt from a little bit later. Okay, so I'll get started. So this is the prologue, which is from the main character Adele's perspective, who is consequently named after my beautiful wife, Adele. 7 months ago. Hands grope, men shout, boots slap the rock floor. Clay dishes and pots are smashed to bits as the enforcers sweep recklessly through our house. There are more bodies in the tiny stone box that I call home than ever before. The walls seem to be closing in. My mother's face is stricken with anger, her lips twisted, her eyebrows dark. I've never seen her fight like this. I've never seen her fight at all. It takes 3 bulging enforcers to subdue her kicking legs, her thrashing arms. For just a moment I am scared of her and not the men. I hate myself for it. I realize my sister is by my side, watching, like me. I can't let her see this, can't let this be her last memory of the ones who raised us. I usher her back into the small room that we share with my parents, and close the door, shutting her inside alone. When I turn back to the room, my mother is already gone, taken. Undigested beans from our measly supper rises in my throat. My father is next. The enforcers jeer at him, taunt him, spit on him. As he backs his shoulders against the cold, stark stone wall, 5 men corner him. Smart, they don't underestimate him. He makes eye contact with me. His emerald-grayed eyes are hard with concentration. Despite the inherent tension in the room, his face is relaxed, calm, the exact opposite of his eyes. Run, he mouths. My feet are frozen to the floor. My knees lock, stiffen, disobey me and my father. I am ashamed. After all that my father has done for me, when it counts the most, I fail him. One of the men lifts an arm and a gun. I hold my breath when I hear the shot, a dull thwop that doesn't sound like a normal gun. The man moves backwards, slightly from the force, but his legs are planted firmly and he maintains his balance. Father slumps to the floor. I feel my lips trembling, and my hand moves unbidden to my mouth. My frozen feet melt, and I try to run to him, but a big body bars my way. I kick him hard, like my father taught me. My heel catches the enforcer under the chin, and its head snaps back. Like most people, he underestimates me. The next enforcer doesn't. The taser rips into my neck, and tentacles of electricity slam my jaw shut. My teeth nearly snap off my tongue, which is flailing around in my mouth. They don't take it easy on me just because I'm a kid, or a girl. Not after what I did to the first guy. Still stunned by the taser, I barely feel the thump of their hard boots as they kick me repeatedly in the ribs. My eyes are wet, and through my blurred vision I see the arcing nightstick. Strangely, it feels like destiny, like it was always going to happen. I hear my sister's screams just before I black out. Still within the prologue, this is now from the point of view of the second main character in the book, Tristan, and it is titled A Brief History of the Tri-Realms. They say the meteor was enormous. Any life left on the surface of the Earth when it hit was wiped out by either the shock wave caused by the collision or the resulting tsunamis unleashed across the world's oceans. Humans were forced to move underground, or so the story goes. Secretly, government scientists expected it for years, using covert teams of miners to dig the world's largest caverns in preparation for the inevitable. But still, there wasn't room for everyone. It would have been terrible, the lottery. Families ripped apart, friends lost, blossoming relationships cut off at the knees. Of course, key individuals like politicians, doctors, scientists, and farmers received a free pass, but all others just got a number. The number gave them a 1 in 100 chance of getting selected to move into the underground facilities. All the rest were destroyed. And that was just the United States. No one knows for sure what happened to the rest of the world. Perhaps they weren't so prepared. Perhaps they were all dead. Year zero would have been difficult for everyone. Losing relatives who didn't make the cut, eating from the rations of rice and beans and hoping it wouldn't run out before the leaders and their teams of advisors could come up with a way to grow food underground. Most people becoming miners, living in darkness. Now all of that is just a part of everyday life. These days, time is measured from the day the meteor hit. It's 4:99 p.m., or post-meteor. Time before Armageddon is referred to as before meteor, or BM. The funny thing about Armageddon, we survived. Well, some of us anyway. Year Zero's first president was Stafford Hughes. Things were run much like before Armageddon, albeit in a slightly more haphazard manner. The U.S. Constitution was upheld, laws were revised as required for our new living situation, new laws were created. But it didn't last. It couldn't last. Things were too different. People were too scared. There was too much chaos. More structure was required. The first Nayland was elected to president in 1:26 p.m. His name was Wilfred Nayland. He was my great-great and a whole lot more greats grandfather. At that point, elections were still held regularly. Congress decided that given the state of America, elections should be held every 5 years instead of 4, with the opportunity for re-election after the first term. But Wilfred wasn't satisfied with 10 years in power, so after his first re-election, he pushed a new law through Congress that allowed for a third presidential term, but only if supported by the people, of course. There were rumors of ballot rigging. After his second re-election, he passed a law that allowed him to remain in power indefinitely, assuming he obtained approval from Congress every 5 years. At the same time, he passed a law that also permitted senators and representatives to maintain their elected positions indefinitely, unless the president released them from service. It was a circular system, one where bribery and deep pockets ruled. Who you knew meant much more than what you knew. The people had lost their voice. That wasn't the end of it. Wilfred's next move was to secure his family's future. He had one son, Edward Nayland. With the full support of Congress, Wilfred managed to pass a law that allowed positions to be handed down from generation to generation within each family, so long as Congress and the President unanimously approved it. Public elections continued to be held, but they were fixed so that no new contenders could infiltrate the inner circle of the government, who was holding all the cards. It worked for a while. In fact, people seemed to like the more rigid and consistent structure. Soon, however, the gap started to widen between the classes. The wealthy began to take on more and more liberties, much to the middle and lower classes' frustration. The complaints started pouring in from those who were being disadvantaged, but they were largely ignored. It got to the point where fights were breaking out in the streets. Elected officials couldn't walk down the street without being accosted by the poor and depressed. Something had to be done. The tri-realms were created from 2:15 post-meteor to 2:55 p.m. First, the moon realm was excavated, using the advancements in mining technology to create massive caverns deep beneath the original caverns to build more cities in. Natural caves were used as a starting point, widened and heightened to the extensive size required to house thousands of people. Heavy beams of rock were used to support the cavern's roofs, which were prone to cave-ins. Middle and lower class citizens were used to do the work, having been convinced by large salaries and the opportunity to advance our civilization for the good of humankind. Once the caverns were complete, the workers were forced to take their families to live in them. Then the work on the star realm began, digging even deeper below the Earth's surface. Fewer resources were allocated to excavating the star realm, and therefore the caverns were smaller, more confined, more densely populated. The poorest citizens were sent to live in the deepest caverns. The top level was given the name of the Sun Realm. Each of the trirealms were split up into 8 chapters, and each chapter into between 2 and 6 subchapters, depending on its size, each of which was populated by between 10 and 100,000 people. Over time, taxes were increased annually for the moon and star dwellers, as those living in the moon and star realms were called, until the sun realm was receiving significant resources to improve their own caverns. Life was good for the sun dwellers. Unfortunately, it wasn't for anyone else. The U.S. Constitution was legally abolished in 3:02 p.m., and Nayland has been in power for more than 350 years. My father told my brother and me the whole story when we turned 12. I still remember the smug smile on his face when he finished. He's proud of what Wilfred accomplished. I'm disgusted by it. Sometimes I think about it and it makes me sick. Like now, lying in bed and wishing my mother was still around. I don't know why I'm thinking about history right now, but I am. That's the end of the prologue. I'm going to give one more chapter, chapter 1 of the book, which is once again from Adele's perspective, and now it's in present day times. Something's happening to my body. There's a dull ache in my skull and ripples of energy coursing down my spine. It all started when I saw him. I know I should hate him. Everyone else around me does. Filthy mutt, I hear one guy growl. He should have stayed above. Yeah, another guy says. I'm surprised he's getting his shoes dirty down here with the rats. I'm sitting in the yard. The yard is what we call the expansive area outside the pen's main building, although I don't know who came up with the name because it makes no sense. There's no yard, just barren rock. Real yards with grass, bushes, and trees are magical places that don't exist in our world. The high fence surrounding the prison buzzes with electricity and threatens us with barbed wire. Through the fence we can see our town, subchapter 14 of the Moon Realm, and the non-prisoners can also see us, the convicted. Even as I stare at freedom through the fence, the feeling gets stronger, like a tingling in the back of my skull, but it really hurts too, aching and throbbing. I feel drawn to him in the most painful of ways. Now wait just a minute before you judge me. It's not love at first sight, if that's what you're thinking. It's something else entirely, but I don't have a name for it. I'd like to think it's magic, like in the illegal fantasy books my grandmother used to read me. But there's no magic in the dark underground world we live in. Nothing but rocks and electrified fences and pain. The parade passes the pen just outside the fence, so close, making all kinds of noise. People cheering, drums thumping, dogs barking. And Tristan, smiling and waving. All the girls in my old school are in love with Tristan. Obviously, none of them know him, but like any male celebrity, he captures the attention of young, naive females. But I've always hated him because of what he represents. Now, stuck in the pen, it seems like an awfully big waste of energy to hate the son of the president, who I don't even know. Perhaps if I hadn't hated him in the past, none of this would have happened. Perhaps my family would still be together. Maybe it was bad karma. But no matter how much I try to wish it all away, my past is the zit that you pop, watch bleed, watch heal, only to see poking from your skin again a week later. Tristan is the polar opposite of a recurring blemish. Blonde, curly hair, 17 but already over 6 feet tall, strong, solid frame, a princely face, big navy blue eyes, an addictive smile with right-sized lips and ivory teeth. My brain is telling me to stop staring at him, but for some reason I can't. Like the pain coursing down my spine is only tolerable if I continue facing him. He flashes a smile. The throbbing grows duller in my head, the buzzing down my spine sharper. My body is telling me something. The pull toward Tristan is getting stronger and more painful. But why? There are about 1,000 of his adoring fans outside the pen, lining the streets, screaming his name and throwing flowers at his car. I even see one of them chuck her undergarments at him. You like him, don't you? A voice says from behind. I turn, unable to stop the look of surprise that blankets my face. A tall, thin girl stands before me. Her strangely white hair is long and straight, reaching all the way to the small of her back. She has porcelain features, as if her face was drawn on by an artist. I can't help wondering what a beautiful girl like her is doing in a place like this. Can I help you? I say, somewhat rudely. I'm Tawny, the girl says, sticking out her hand. I stare at her slender fingers like they're a nest of snakes, hesitate, and then eventually take them. I shiver at her icy touch, but her handshake feels surprisingly firm for how thin she is. Sorry, poor circulation, she says. I chew my lip, considering her. Have a seat, I finally say with a slight wave of my arm. Flashing a grin, she takes a seat next to me on the rock bench. Thanks, she says. I grin back. I can't believe it. I'm actually smiling. Well, sort of. I think it's a pathetic attempt, but at least my lips are curled up in a crooked, awkward, I don't know how to smile for pictures kind of way. You know, like those kids in year 3 who always end up with the worst yearbook photos, the ones with the crazy eyes and fake smiles. That's me trying to smile at my new friend, Tawny. Are you going to answer my question or what? She says. I go back to chewing on my lip. What question? I say, feigning ignorance. Come on, she says. Do you like Tristan or not? I don't know him, I say neutrally, internally considering whether she's one of his crazed fans, obsessive to the point of throwing underwear. The parade passes slowly. Tristan will be out of sight in a few minutes, moving down another street, probably heading toward Moon Hall, where the local politicians gather to do whatever it is they do, mostly screw us over. I crane my neck, trying to get a final glimpse of his smile. I don't think he's a bad guy, Tawny says. Really? I say, only half listening. No. I mean, his dad's a jerk, but I don't think kids should be judged by what their stupid parents do. My ears perk up. I glance at Tawny. Her slight grin has melted. Her lips are pursed and thin. If nothing else, her statement has piqued my interest in her. Where she comes from, who she is, what she's done to land herself in this hellhole, and why she cares about what Tristan and his father do. Tawny ignores my look and continues watching the parade, so I turn back too. The lead car in which Tristan is standing is about to turn the corner. He's waving to his fans, smiling his mesmerizing smile, and then he looks at me. Right at me, like his eyes are gun sights and I'm their target. Despite the distance, it's like they pierce my soul, sending waves of energy up my back and through my neck, slamming into my brain like a freaking sledgehammer. Arrgh! I cry out, flinching. I tear my eyes away from him and settle my head into my hands, massaging my pounding temples. What is it? Tawny asks, putting an arm on my back. Ignoring her, I glance up at Tristan, who's still looking my way. The pounding in my skull comes back in droves, but not quite as strong this time. As I stare up at him, his face changes. Gone is the smile. Gone are his piercing eyes, all swallowed up in a frown. At first I think I was rude, that I've stared too long, or too crazy, because of my weird spasm, but then I feel a presence approaching from the side, a dark shadow. Not good. Alright, that's it. That's chapter 1. The next chapter is chapter 2 from Tristan's perspective, where you get a bit of a feel for what he's feeling as Adele's going through this pain at the first sight of seeing him. The series, in case you want more information, is 3 books long. The Moon Dwellers is the first one, the second is the Star Dwellers, and the third is the Sun Dwellers. And then its sister series is called the Country Saga, starting with Fire Country, which I'll do a reading for a little bit later on, and the second book is Ice Country, and then Water and Storm Country. Now, those 2 series are completely separate. The characters, the plot lines, the setting, everything like that are separate, so you can read them in any order, really, until the 3rd book in each series finally bring the characters together. And then the 7th and final book, which I'll also do a bit of an excerpt for later on, is called The Earth Dwellers, and that will combine the 2 series into a final, hopefully epic finish to a long journey that's taken me 18 months, 600,000 words, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to finish. But I hope I've done the series justice in that final book. But I hope you enjoyed this little sneak peek at the Moon Dwellers, and I hope you get a chance to try out this book and the series soon. And I really appreciate everyone who's given me any level of support from the bloggers, like Jenny, awesome people, my street team, and my new agent, Andrea Hurst, who is working very hard on getting me my first publisher. So that's the goal. But thanks again, Jenny, for having me, and we'll do a couple of more readings over the course of the month. I hope everyone enjoys them. Thanks again, and take care.
Busted!